So I know you were going to share a little bit about what's happened over the last year. How long? When did you get diagnosed?
Is this running?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I got diagnosed pancreatic cancer, stage 4, which means it spread to other organs. I actually learned, I got a CAT scan on July 30th and learned that it was pancreatic cancer that had spread on July 31st. And that set into motion massive changes in my, just practical nuts and bolts stuff in my life and Pam's life. It's been a year, a little over a year, and I'm still here, and cancer's still here. It's actually spread, but I'm, doing reasonably well. I just want to extend life as long as possible with good quality of life. That's the goal.
And tell me some of the things you've learned through last year.
So it really has been it's not fun. I wouldn't wish it for myself or anybody else, but it's been a really interesting journey, and there's been a lot to learn from it, and a lot of it's overall not a good thing, but there's been some good to come from it too. So I'd say one of the immediate things that just happened to me, and I've since reflected on why, and I'll talk about that a little bit, but it immediately kicked in that I did not want to maintain my consulting practice. I wanted to focus entirely on the disease. I was tempted for about 24 hours to keep my current clients and not take new clients and see how this went, meaning I would continue working without taking on new obligations. And after about 24 hours, I very quickly dismissed that. And when I reflected on that, that was a really key decision, because and it wasn't I didn't spend a lot of time thinking and pondering. I just felt it was right. But upon reflection, I think, for me, it's not to judge people that get a terminal illness and decide to keep working 60 hours a week, and there's some people that do that. For me, it would have fed into a lack of fully accepting and dealing with the illness. It would have allowed me distraction, kind of facilitated denial, if you will, on some level. So that was decision number one. And then I started becoming aware that, I wasn't happy about this, and Pam and I shed some, tears over it. But I wasn't devastated. And I found myself almost surprising myself with how well I was able to accept it. And so I think, again, the starting point was the decision to free up time and space to really focus on it. That's part of the acceptance. And talk about it real overtly, starting with kids, starting with family. Be very direct and self-disclosing about it. That was an element of it. And start to learn about it. Start to really learn about my illness and all that stuff. I kind of joked with people about, yeah, I'm not doing consulting anymore. I'm kind of my own full-time medical case manager now. You know, I kind of joke, and there's some truth in that. So then I was reflecting on, so why? How come that came pretty readily to me? And that was part of the learning experience, I think, because that was the reflection. And I came to a few conclusions. One was that I was secure in who I had become and what I had done with my life. If I was steeped in regrets about how I'd lived my life, it would have been much harder, I believe. So I had some security that I was personally secure in who I was. I felt like it's kind of your self-esteem. My self-esteem was reasonably good, so that made it a little easier. Probably way more important than that was the security of the stable relationships that I had and the strong relationship I had, mostly with people, but also with kids. So I felt like, you know, if relationships were frayed or strained at that basic level with your spouse, with your children, that would make it hard. And then another element was just age. I mean, you know, I was 67 when I was diagnosed. I turned 68 in January. It's like my dad died of cancer suddenly with a very virulent cancer at 38. And kids were little. I was 4. I was the youngest. So if I had died at 38 or 40 with my kids little, you got a whole different hill to climb on acceptance. And there's just no doubt about that. So those reflections, I think, allowed me to be a bit humble of how come I was able to accept this. It's not like, you know, I was stronger or better or somebody that struggles more, somebody that struggles with denial or whatever. I think, you know, I was fortunate. There's just a lot to be grateful for. And I was able to use that. And it has freed me to deal with the practicality of the illness, you know, to talk candidly. Had great doctors that have appreciated that I want to talk about the science of it and clinical trials that are on the potential. I've been on one clinical trial, so on chemo for 6 months, clinical trial, and back on chemo now. This clinical trial, it's not a magic bullet, which most of them aren't, but so I've been through that journey, and I talk about a learning experience. Wow, it's like a whole new aspect of your life, the existence that you learn about, and the freedom to have the time and space to reflect, to really think about what's going on, to have the time and space to long, just meandering conversations with Pam about, both reflecting on things but also planning things. A lot of conversation about, when I'm not here, what's she going to do? The kids get into practical stuff about the house and where she's going to live, and and then we open those conversations up to kids. Time and space to do that stuff has been a really important part of the acceptance. If you're not accepting the illness, that stuff becomes very scary to talk about. So that's been a blessing.
That's awesome.
I'm very attuned to who is comfortable talking in a pretty straightforward way with me and who isn't. And what that really means is some people just get really too anxious with the concept or the interaction or the thought of it or whatever, which is a reflection of them really and where they're at in their life, not me, I don't think. But it also, I kind of feel like our society is not very adept at dealing with death and dying. I feel like it's more of a conclusion just based on life experience in general, I think, that just like when I said, if I would have expected myself to carry on and charge through with my career, and my goal was to go all out, keep working until the week before I died, for some people that's what they want to do. And if they and their family want to do that and they want to support that, that's fine. That certainly didn't fit me. Likewise with the grief that, when Pam and I talk about what she's going to go through on the loss and talk with the kids, it's like there's almost a societal expectation that you grieve like for a week or two, and then you get on with life. And it's like people don't want to talk about that you're still in grieving. And when I think about more ancient cultures, older cultures, where people were black for 6 months or a year, or people were in mourning for a long time, and people respected that. People would take to bed for 2 or 3 days in grief and depression, really, and that was supported. It wasn't looked down of like, ooh, you need a pill or you need to see somebody. So I feel like we have this society expectation of kind of get with it, get with the program, don't cave to difficult emotions. I feel like that's all part of a kind of a denial system of dealing with death and dying. On the one hand, and it hasn't been that long, Keebler-Ross did the research on stages of death and dying. It's reasonably well known, certainly in psychology and so forth. I'm not sure people put it into practice. So part of my reflection has been, it's like on the one hand, I've really wanted to focus on acceptance, and I haven't wanted to go into what I call the dark side of going victim. The life isn't fair, so that anger, it's like, I've asked myself, am I short-selling myself on being able to be angry about this? Am I somehow repressing anger and it's like, well, I don't know, maybe I've felt angry. When I feel angry, it's that kind of sad. Not seeing grandkids graduate from high school. Certainly not enjoying more time with Dan, but it's more about grandkids, kids. So you can feel cheated. I felt angry about that, but I've not wanted to stay there. I've a little visit there, but it's like to just go there wholeheartedly. And, it's like, I don't think that's going to help me stay positive, which I think is important, that this happens. It's part of life. Getting sick and eventually dying, it happens to all of us. And there's a lot to learn from it. And actually, I think there's been an element of being aware that I can kind of as a role model teach kids and grandkids how to cope with a really severe kind of catastrophic thing. And I'm sort of mindful of a responsibility to do that.
One of the things we really didn't talk about is sadness.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear a beautiful acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Share what does sadness look like last year?
Well, sadness is a difficult subject. My dad died when I was 4. And my family, my brothers and my mother, worked very hard for pretty much a lifetime to have a stiff upper lip, sort of, and not succumb to deep grieving. Honestly, I never saw my mother cry. I think she thought she was doing the right thing to be strong. I'm sure she cried a lot privately, probably, but so it's like that's a difficult one from background. I think our society, crying in public is not so cool. It's like, maybe you need an antidepressant, get on with life, that kind of thing. So I think there are some forces that make it difficult. And certainly for me, it's not it's funny too, because I'm known as a crier. Like I'm known when I'm, at work at Youth in Need, when I would stand up and extemporaneously give an award or talk about somebody I cared about. I'd just be a mess. So the emotion, and it's not like that was a sad event, it was a happy event. But like, I was known as a crier, okay? And yet when something really sad happened, my instincts would be to shut it down. What's happened in this past year is because of the acceptance and because of the straightforward, and just because of having the time and space to talk a lot with Pam, to talk a lot with our kids on the phone and in person, there have been, I've been freer to feel sad than I had, most of my life. So that's a good thing. Now, that instinct is still there, so that, this conversation and other things, I'm okay. If I can hear a little emotion creep up, I'm working hard to shove that down, right? Because that's kind of what I do. So it's a time and place thing, I guess. But I have felt freer to experience sadness, which I think really is important.
I know that a lot of people, when they have something like this hit them, they rely on faith as a strengthening, as a support system, as a foundation. How does that land with you?
Yeah, so, my closest friends know about me very well, but a lot of close associates really don't. They really don't know where I'm at in terms of faith and religion. I grew up in the Lutheran Church, and very intentionally and consciously, with a lot of thought, left the Lutheran Church as a young man in my early 20s, and have since been not religiously affiliated by intention and thought. So, when I explain it to people, I saying it's true. I feel like I benefited from many of the values and traditions of Christian heritage, Lutheran culture, and many traditions, and my choice to not associate with any organized religion, is really based on a very personal. I decided my spirituality, which I do have and feel a sense of spirituality, about a power higher than myself and so forth. I am very uncomfortable tying it to dogma, to certain teachings, to certain boundaries, and this is right and this is wrong way to think, and I'm just not comfortable with that. So that was the decision I made. What that does is, and I feel good about it, I feel very free to accept and respect the people that do affiliate with organized religion. That's good for them. If that's good for them, I'm all for it. And in fact, my relatives, pretty much everybody, I can't recall anybody that's like rejected me because I've fallen away from the church. You hear about that in some families. I've certainly known of people that's happened with, but I have never experienced that personally. And I'm mindful of the fact that we're in a society where there is freedom of religion, freedom of expression. It's different than it was 300-400 years ago in almost every society and culture. Where tremendous oppression if you kind of went outside of the box. So I can respect where people are at, and I can also appreciate my form of spirituality is that I feel like my sense of my personal individual spirituality allows me to have prayerful thoughts about other people and accept them from others. And I don't care if it's, so I have people praying for me. Every denomination of Christian, Muslims, Jews, agnostics, atheists in their own way, with positive thoughts or whatever. And it's like, for me, it's like bring it. It is all helpful and appreciated. But it's not, in my mind, it's not in the context of an organized religion. Yeah, so this business of why has it clicked in with relative, without really a lot of struggle to really fully accept my illness and its implications and everything. And I think the other, and I've reflected on this, I think that when I've really faced difficult things, along the line of growing up in my adult life in particular, I really struggled with some stuff. But at the end of the day, I felt like I came to a resolution and came to view on this, what seemed like a horrible crisis at the time. I came to view it as, wow, kind of without that, I wouldn't have grown. I wouldn't have learned and grown. So the mindset that a tragic happening, catastrophic kind of a thing, that there can be something positive and you can grow from it, you can learn from it. I think I've experienced, but Pam has too, so that we've been able to kind of together talk about that aspect of it. And Pam has just shared that, just in the past year, just the process of talking about her future after I pass and so forth she feels like it's really strengthened her. She's gotten more confidence about herself and moving forward, as scary as it is and as kind of overwhelming as it is to think about. She's confident. So that's a new level of confidence. And it's weird. It's a weird kind of thing to think about, that I've got terminal cancer and some good can come out of it, but I think it's true. Have the heart of a social worker, the soul of a musician, and the body of the Pillsbury Doughboy. And everybody laughed, which I would assume everybody will laugh at that.
For sure.
Bring a little levity to the old wake, right?